Hello, good morning, everyone. Today we're going to talk about Facebook. If you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves, and then we can get started.
Good morning. I'm Vince Errico. I'm with Trusted Media Brands. I'm the Chief Digital Officer. I've been with the company about 2.5 years now. Most of you probably don't recognize the Trusted Media Brands name, but our titles are things like Reader's Digest, Taste of Home, The Family Handyman, and we have roughly a dozen titles that we work with.
Morning. Rithesh, Menon. I'm with Good Media Brands, and in case you haven't heard of Good, that's because we only came into existence a few months ago. We have two brands under our family. It's Good Magazine and Upworthy. So hopefully you all are familiar with Upworthy. I run all of our monetization and our accounts. So a lot of the work we do with brand partners. And I've been with the company like going on 2 years.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Greg Morrow. I'm the COO of Ranker. I've been there about a year. So Ranker was a platform developed by the founder to reinvent the concept of the list. So if you think about a list, generally you think of a 23-year-old editor creating a top 15 or top 23. Ranker built a platform that allows the editor to create a list, publish it out, and have users vote and shape that. So it creates a wisdom of the crowd around subjects, and has built a repository of 100,000 lists and growing, mostly focused on entertainment.
How you doing? Will Wan. I'm on the revenue team. I've been at Vox for about 4.5 years, and I recently come in like 2017, I'm leading concert marketplace operations.
So I'm sure we're all familiar with Facebook's recent algorithm change. It reportedly brought the demise of a couple of publishers, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I was wondering if you could tell us how your companies have changed, if they've changed their social strategies since the Facebook algorithm change, and if your companies were affected by that algorithm change.
Sure. So there were, I guess, two significant Facebook algorithm changes. Most of you probably are aware. One was last fall, and then one was earlier this year. And what we've seen for across all of our brands where we have a Facebook presence, which is most of them, was that we actually did not see any kind of significant hit on so there were two measures that we looked at. One was overall engagement on the site, and one was traffic generated back, engagement on Facebook, and then traffic generated to the sites. Neither of those metrics took a hit for us. And so, as a result, we actually did not change anything in our posting strategy. When I look at year-over-year comparisons, what we've discovered is that our engagement rates have actually increased on Facebook, on the platform itself, and they were already very high to begin with, and they've gone up, and that traffic to the sites has actually also gone up. So, Facebook has said that their algorithm changes were based on engagement rates, and so I think because our engagement rates were relatively high compared to the average, it seems like it has not affected us, and we're still watching that very carefully because it's, I guess, as with any algorithm, they're constantly making changes. They don't always announce them, so we're always just watching that as part of our overall portfolio.
So ours is sort of similar. I mean, doing both of these algorithm changes, we saw a bit of a dip, but it was sort of like it's a blip, and then it just continued on its path. So for example, after the most recent one earlier this year, our overall views on video on Facebook are up, shares are up. So what's odd is like people are actually sharing more and they're watching more of our video content, which is always great. What we believe, and we've always believed this about Facebook, is the one metric that we've always been very, very sort of focused on, hyper-focused, is shareability. So it's not so much how many people watch the content, it's really how many people watch the content and then share it. And that sharing is really powerful, right? Because if you're a publisher, you tell a narrative or a story on Facebook, when someone shares it, it becomes part of their narrative. So when your friend shares something that we wrote, they're not just saying, this is a great story. It's like, I really empathize with this, or I really agree with this, or I've seen this is amazing. Then you watch it, and then you do the same. So I think in that sense, Facebook has always been a great platform for us, and honestly, that has really not changed after these more recent algorithm changes.
So Rankers had developed a strategy around developing niche Facebook channels. So we have a broad Ranker channel, but we also have, over time, developed 25 niche channels. So what we've seen with the algorithm change, and we've actually noticed 5 different algorithm changes over the last 12 months. And so we've looked at the data. They're constantly updating. We've seen at least 5 major changes and evolution. So what we've really focused on is niche. So we've seen the Ranker channel degrade a little bit in terms of site visits, but our niche channels continue to grow both in audience and engagement and their traffic delivery. So we're actually continuing to launch more niche channels in focused areas and do that. So the other thing that we look at very aggressively from a standpoint is time on site. So we have Facebook Pixel on site. We monitor time on site. We actually have certain channels that do 11 minutes time on site reading articles coming from Facebook. And so Facebook algorithm not only keys on that engagement metrics on Facebook, but actually the time spent on your website and those metrics. From a video standpoint, we saw, we keyed on the metrics of sharing, but we've noticed the algorithm has changed to focus more on commenting around a video, so that being a core metric, and we've changed our views on that from a video standpoint.
So, sorry, if I could just ask a question. So what you're saying is those content shared from those specific sites weren't affected because they had higher engagement?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So yeah, so the more focused
Before the change, right?
Yeah, the more focused the channel and more narrow, the better results we've had with it.
Yeah, Vox. I feel like at Vox we've done a very good job of building a strong, loyal audience across all 8 of our brands. So we definitely have built that loyal audience there. We generally didn't really see an effect. Probably not a big effect, but we're pretty much staying the course. Though the algorithm change and everything, we know that Facebook, they're going to be able to do whatever they want to do. So we're going to always pay attention to other social strategies.
So if that's the case, it sounds like it didn't hugely impact you guys. Then if that's the case, why do you think Facebook and the changes that it made recently are being blamed for the demise of publishers like Little Things, and we were talking about Rare.us, which is a conservative site. Why do you think it brought down those sites, and then other publishers were marginally affected, if affected at all?
Well, back to something that Greg just mentioned. I think one of the noticeable changes in the algorithm changes how Facebook deals with the engagement, and so I think we noticed as well that they changed how they measure engagement, or how much they weigh the different factors for engagement, and comments was definitely one of them. And so on some of our sites, for example, on our Taste of Home site, which is mostly recipes, and mostly what I will call vintage recipes, we get huge engagement because people get very excited to see, in terms of comments, very excited to see, oh, my grandmother used to make that, oh, I love that, oh, I now make that for my kid. And you just see the comments go on and on and on, in addition to the shares. And I think that when for one of the things so we actually had a content partnership with Little Things for together with our Reader's Digest Facebook page, and one of the things we noticed is it would their content would perform well for our audience in terms of likes and shares, but not in terms of comments. And on Reader's Digest, that's another, on that Facebook page, we also have a large number of comments. We don't allow any commenting on the site on any of our content or our articles. And so a lot of that kind of interaction, we sort of push that to Facebook, and it happens on Facebook. And we noticed that didn't happen. It didn't happen with their content, and I'm going to guess that may have been one factor for them.
So I think for us, I mean, engagement definitely, sort of saved the day for us. But I think this goes back to something a little further up, right? So if you've been a publisher on Facebook and you've sort of, you've really thought of Facebook as this other audience, right? Like, I've got my site, those are my loyalists, those are my core readers, those are the guys I like. And then you got like Facebook, Twitter, whatever. And you thought of them in any way, shape, or form, perhaps as short-term wins or something I can do to shore up something I need to achieve for a brand partnership or whatever. I think the reality is that for publishers like us, I mean, we came of age on Facebook. So Facebook is our community. I mean, we get huge highs in the office just watching people share stuff, comment on stuff, write into us. So we've always treated Facebook audiences of immense value, which means that they factor into how we tell stories, what the editorial team thinks of writing next. So when these changes happen, I think while there might have been shifts in strategy or perhaps the way we approach certain things, I mean, fundamentally the core of what we do as a publisher and the people whom we serve, I mean, that didn't really go away, right? And I think that's essentially, I mean, that's kind of the way we think about it. So that's not to say that, it's all going to be fine. Like you said, I mean, Facebook will probably do whatever they decide to do because at the end of the day, it's their platform, not ours. But I think that's that's one of the reasons why a lot of publishers struggled. I mean, if they didn't place that premium on that audience and they did not sort of, gear their company that way, I think it was really hard. I mean, two algorithms, wow. Not enough coffee, folks. Two algorithms back to back meant that it was like a sucker punch that's really hard to come back from. So I think that in effect is also part of the challenge.
So the algorithm did not kill Little Things, is the short answer. So I would say the factor of three things combined is what led to the demise. One, the other change in Facebook on January 25th. So Facebook also brought about a change in their influencer policy. So Little Things had developed a audience development strategy around leveraging a network of several hundred influencers that would repost their content for rev share. And so they're built this little booming business on Facebook and on Instagram around the reposting of content. And so that Facebook was aware of that business. They didn't like that monetization strategy. So they changed the influencer policy to say, you have to be part of the creation process of the editorial in order to post it. And so that completely wiped out that avenue of audience development for Little Things. And so the second point is diversity. So Little Things, unlike a lot of other publishers, didn't develop a diverse audience development strategy going into other mediums as aggressively. They relied not only on Facebook, but on this one strategy within Facebook. And there's several different, very effective strategies within Facebook. We'll talk later about our paid audience development strategy. And then third is their capital structure. If you look on Crunchbase, they only raised a small amount of debt, and when they were in the sale process, and that didn't evolve. So just a little story about that.
Yeah, I think anytime that a majority of your strategy is dependent on a third-party platform like Facebook or something or a company that like you just have no control over, you will be at the whim of whatever that is, and it just happened to be Facebook, and it's an unfortunate situation for Little Things.
Yeah, well, I remember you're saying that you have found, Vox has found a lot of success on other platforms as well, right?
Yeah.
Experimenting with videos on YouTube and Twitter.
Yeah, so we've always been diversified in content distribution. We do a lot of video distribution on YouTube. We found that short form to long form, it all works for us, especially like the explainer videos that you might have seen. Those do very well on YouTube, also on other platforms as well. On Facebook, we found that like short form content, 3 to 5 minute videos really work for us, but it really is dependent on each one of the brands, as each one acts pretty differently.
And for the rest of you, what formats or categories of content have you found are most successful on Facebook, and what works better on other platforms?
So video works very, very well on Facebook, and I think we've seen with some of their algorithm changes, they have promoted video over other forms of postings. But just story, I guess what I would call the normal written posts, imagery tends to do very well for us as well. Yeah, so those are probably what works well on Facebook. We also have a diverse, so I think when I think of audience development overall for our company, I also think of it very much as diversifying a portfolio. And so, and social media is just, I almost think of that as like an industry vertical. So if you're investing in tech, you wouldn't just invest all in Apple or Google, you would look at investing across the board. And I think, and in social media, we treat that the same way. So, we use all the platforms out there, including YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Pinterest is huge for us because it's a very visual medium, and it works particularly well for food and home improvement DIY. Yeah. So and on all of those channels, I would say that YouTube, obviously, all video. Pinterest, a mix of imagery, some video. So it's a mix, and we're constantly playing with that mix.
So for us, it's been video all along. I mean, and video on Facebook has done incredibly well for us, and I think we've over the years we've busted many myths about what works in terms of length, format, et cetera. I mean, I always tell folks like our best performing video ever, which has at this point probably close to 120 million views, is nearly 6 minutes long, and people watch it nearly to the very end. So I mean, it's we've never sort of assumed that there is a formula necessarily. Though for us, the diversification thing, I mean, we've been a little slow on that wagon. So for us, the most success has come lately with Instagram. We've actually done very well co-opting some of our narrative for Instagram stories. Our audience really likes that. There's a high engagement that we're seeing on that. We've been on Twitter for a long time as well. It's more of an engagement thing for us with readers. The last one I'll mention, though, it's not really a social channel, but it's still very strong for us and growing, is email. People still, we have an email that goes out every day, and folks are still signing up, and it gets incredibly high open rates. So that's another platform and channel through which we're seeing immense growth.
Yeah, so for Facebook specifically, we've found kind of a strategy around, obviously I mentioned before, niche audience development in terms of spinning content into organic, and then we use video and still photos to drive engagement on the channel to develop reach, and then use link post to drive audience. And so we use this combination of multiple types of content to drive different facets of the Facebook strategy that complement each other. Also, what we've done is over the last 18 months, we've developed a software that allows us to take the top 10, 15% of our organic posts and then do A/B testing in a paid environment and use Facebook's vast audience targeting as well as our own internal data to spin those into paid in a profitable manner. So we have an automated system that manages that bidding, kills the campaigns that don't have high ROI, expands the campaigns that do. So we've been able to leverage that technology to go from 93 million visits in October to 213 million visits in May. In terms of other platforms that we've been experimenting and having success is Instagram Stories. We've been able to see that platform really actually, if you can leverage the Stories platform and growth hack that to drive significant audience for the follower count. So we've been expanding our efforts in those. And then getting back to, again, it's not specifically social, but email and SEO, going back to the basics of really driving audience through those platforms. We've doubled SEO in the last year in terms of audience visits from that. So.
Yeah, I think at Vox we've been doing a lot of A/B testing, a lot of testing of content for each brand and on which platforms. And like there are a few learnings that like we do see that maybe we didn't think that we're going to be positive, but like we've seen some success in launching branded content distribution on Twitter, which I didn't think was actually going to work, but we've seen some success there. And also, to give myself my own plug, but through Concert, we've been seeing a lot of engagement of branded content distribution across Concert, and there's high engagement rates there. And we have a little bit more control over that because we own it, and it's proprietary to us. So the general strategy for us is just to test everything everywhere, and what works now might not work 6 months from now. So continually testing.
Well, yeah. Speaking of Concert, it's Vox's own advertising platform, right?
Yeah, it's a joint publisher marketplace started by Vox and MECU, and then we have a bunch of great pubs within it.
So I'm wondering if you could tell us how Concert works with Facebook, and advertisers, and how that environment works for you guys.
Yeah, so a lot of advertisers come to us to distribute like their client assets, or if it's branded content that either Vox in-house created, Vox creative in-house like has created branded content, or if they just had branded content created by another studio or elsewhere. And we've seen a lot of success with brands coming to us and us distributing that content for them.
So there's been a lot of scrutiny recently with Facebook, and I'm wondering if you guys as publishers still consider it a brand safe environment, with advertisers and your own content. Do you still trust Facebook? I mean, after everything that's happened?
It's a yes/no kind of answer. They're still such a large and obviously important platform that, given their overall reach and how many of our own audience are on that platform and use that platform. So we do feel like it's a platform that we still need to participate in, but we're also obviously cautious, watching what's happening, and reevaluating our own relationship with Facebook and Facebook data, what data we actually share with them. Someone mentioned the Facebook pixel earlier, reevaluating, what we do with that, how we're going to use that kind of information. So yeah, I mean we're watching it very cautiously. Reevaluating as in you don't want to share as much with Facebook? Well, I don't know how much choice we have when you use their pixel, we've done some testing around not using their pixel in certain instances to see, what happens on the back end. So yeah, we're just looking to see if there are potentially other options.
So we haven't had any issues with our brand partners necessarily from a brand safety perspective. And I think one of the reasons for that is, like I said, our community is Facebook. We value that community. So brand partners are typically coming to us to help create content on their behalf for that community, which means pretty much everything we do, we have an immense hand in it, both in a creative sense, but also in terms of how we distribute. So brands are more than happy to work with us just because they're not looking to jeopardize the chances of that content and that narrative not performing. And a lot of a lot of the strategy, and I have a sense, because when we chatted about this, I feel like we're all on the same page. Just in terms of kind of moving off of Facebook, I mean, it's less driven by everything that's happened in the last 6 months and generally sort of algorithm changes and everything. It's honestly more coming from a space of just, a place of just thinking like, what else is, like what's next, right? I mean, this morning we heard from Gina and the future of voice. I mean, it's not to say that voice cannot happen on Facebook. It's just that at the moment, the leaders in that sector are not Facebook. So you probably will have to think creative on how to take advantage of that for your pub. So a lot of this is driven, I think, by long-term growth strategy or some kind of audience dev strategy. At least in our case, and we do a ton of branded content. I mean, that is our bread and butter, and that's what we're known for. Most partners who have come, their concerns are cursory, and it's usually not very different. It's the same due diligence they would have done, pre-Cambridge Analytica. Now, if you ask me my personal opinion, that's a whole different story. Probably not fit for this live stream, but we'll purely from a publisher perspective, no, it hasn't really changed the way we think about it.
So, I mean, I think everyone can believe that everyone's company's interests are their own. So Facebook's interests and what they do are their own. So they're not responsible for us as a community to deliver the audience they did. We happen to have, for a period of time, mutually aligned interests. We wanted huge audiences, and they saw the engagement that they drove on their platform. But the effects of that with fake news and some of the other problems they had led them to the decision that they wanted to deprioritize that because they, I think as long as everyone's aware, of that they're looking out for their best interests, and developing a diversified strategy, Facebook is still, can be a very important platform for distribution, and as I mentioned before, what we found is that organic is really a testing ground for that paid amplification to understand what that subset of content that really connects with your users. And by using really laser-focused targeting, so if we produce an article about Game of Thrones fan theories, we can Facebook has a really rich understanding of people that are potentially interested in that piece of content. So we can go into that pool of 2 billion people and fish and find the consumers that are directly interested in Game of Thrones and draw them back to our audience. And because we have strong BI understanding, we can do that in a profitable manner. So I think the other message I would say is really shifting a mindset in publishing to understand kind of the direct marketing mentality, funnel development, BI, really have a rich understanding of the data, develop that muscle and understand that each piece of content is a direct marketing message to that user that's interested in that content and not just kind of blasting content out over the platform, to try and expect to get a broad reach for every piece of content.
Yeah, even though there is like a serious public trust issue with Facebook right now, it's still like a necessary. This can be so terrible, but like there's still like a necessary.
Sorry, it's just a live stream.
Evil, I guess, but a necessary strategy. So like, I mean, you know what you're getting with Facebook. You know that there are going to be public trust issues, and I think people are still going to use them.
Sorry, go ahead, Vince.
Well, I was just going to echo something that Greg said around, I think about our Facebook strategy as sort of the editorial posting is almost like the equivalent of PR or brand advertising, but then we can see what does well, as like Greg was just talking about, and then use that to leverage the direct marketing aspect to sell our subscriptions to our magazines or our books or our subscription box program or online classes or things like that, and that actually is a very sort of powerful combination. And with a lot of publishers that I've spoken to is they often split those two things and treat them very independently. But the power really comes when you unify that, as in any good marketing strategy. If you unify the PR and the branding with the actual direct-to-consumer marketing efforts, that's where you start to see the real efficiencies.
Yeah, that's a really important, both what Vince said and what Greg mentioned. So, the one thing for us that's really fascinating is, I mean, we've done A/B testing for a very, very long time, and if you all remember this, there was an article where we got accused of, this was like 4 years ago, we got accused of inventing clickbait inadvertently because we were just trying to make shit go viral. And we apologize for that. But so the A/B testing has been, it's in our DNA. But the one thing we found really fast, I mean, we A/B test even our video content, and we've been doing that for years. But the thing that we found with Facebook that's actually really valuable to us, I mean, we've got like 12 million followers on Facebook. It's a large focus group. I mean, there is so much you can learn from, just their behavior and what content appeals to them, but also what else they're doing on other platforms. If they, for example, if they share certain Instagram stories, things like that. And I think, that stuff with our data science team, I mean, that is real gold to us because it tells us a lot of things of the reader. And ultimately, I mean, it goes back to what I said earlier, which is, if your goal is ultimately to add value to your reader and their lives and what they're trying to do, in that sense, I think Facebook is actually super valuable, at least for publishers like us. I mean, we've, like I said, we came of age on there. So for us, one of the things that's really shifted in the last year, and I think it's been sort of, perhaps we're moving a little faster now with everything that's happened, is just this sort of mentality of learning, okay, well, what can Facebook tell us about our own readers that will help us understand potentially how to engage with them on some, on another platform? What might work? And we're seeing like moderate success with that, but that's something that we've been sort of heavily focused on, I'd say, in the last quarter and a half.
Yeah, so it sounds like some of the takeaways are that Facebook is great for video, for engagement. It's great to have content that will encourage readers to comment. But I'm wondering what else you as publishers have used Facebook for, because I know there's a growing trend of trying to get users to come to your own sites. And so are there other ways that you're using Facebook to try to drive traffic to your own sites, or to buy or to sign up for newsletters? How else are you using Facebook?
Yes, so we are definitely using it in all of those ways. We use it the way Rithesh was just talking about. It is a great way to think of it as almost instant feedback. Great way to do some almost focus group type research, understand what people are interested in. We definitely use it to drive all of those things you just described. Newsletter signups, to sell magazine subscriptions, books, subscription boxes, classes.
And does it really work?
So on.
It works?
Yes, it can work. Yeah, I would say yes, it can definitely work, and we've seen it work across all of those things for us to differing degrees, to different extents. And then we use it also in our advertising sales when we work with advertising clients. We have very large engaged audience. They're very interested in reaching them on that platform. In that discussion, you'd mentioned brand safety before, in that discussion, they feel comfortable that even on Facebook, if they're doing something together with us, that feels safer to them than if they were doing doing something on their own with Facebook, buying directly from Facebook. So we do use it and try to leverage it in all those things that are possible to do.
Yeah, so we do the same, driving traffic, distribution, email signups. I think the two things we're focused on, and that could be really interesting for us, is so we do a lot of work with in the impact sector with foundations and nonprofits. We have a long relationship of working with folks in that space. So one of the early things we started testing, and we're sort of still halfway through it, is just figuring out if we can push folks to advocate for a cause. ones that align closely with our readers. And the trick is eventually to move them from, down that funnel from awareness to engagement to eventually taking some kind of offline action. That could be anything from raising money to volunteering to showing up, for a rally or et cetera. So that's something that we're really, really curious about. And then the other side of it is we're kind of trying to dip our toes into commerce. And it's really interesting because, if anybody saw or read the behemoth that is Mary Meeker's report, social is great for discovery. So if you're, trying to run content commerce or any kind of content, Facebook is still actually, or is becoming very quickly a preferred channel for discovery. So we're curious as to what that means and potentially how that could translate into some kind of actual purchase. So those are two things that we're kind of thinking about pretty seriously, at least in 2018.
Yeah, so Ranker has been using Facebook in terms of the photos and videos to drive engagement, but really laser focused on using it as an audience development platform in terms of really driving clicks back to our site for monetization. We haven't traditionally had a sales organization that's focused on branded content, so we haven't used it as a monetization platform, used it as an audience development platform. More recently, similar to what was said previously, is we've been experimenting with direct commerce and how we can leverage the platform to drive awareness of product discovery, and ultimately the attribution for that as well.
Yeah, for us, I think the focus for us on Facebook is mainly branded content distribution and also like organic content distribution for our editorial brands. We have used Facebook as our own marketing tool as well. It's definitely an audience development tool. And we've also sort of dabbled in like an arbitrage business model, but it's still something that we're looking into.
Well, I was just going to say in yesterday's panel on e-commerce, I think social came up, and I think we've found that it can be effective in driving some of our e-commerce initiatives, but again, most effective when it's done in combination with that with what I will call the editorial posting, and we find those things that work, and then are able to use that or leverage that to really find those audiences in a cost-effective way who are interested in purchasing certain products.
Great, thanks. I think we're going to turn it over for questions.
Yeah, let's open up for questions.
Hayden Lynch with Group 9 Media. Really interesting to me that nobody brought up Watch, and I'm interested to know if you guys are investing in Watch as a platform, obviously something that we have direct sales access to, I think for Group 9, a huge point of investment for us. So interested to know if you guys are investing, and if not, why not?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say. That's why I didn't bring it up. But we're definitely aware of Facebook Watch. But I'll just leave it at that for now.
Short answer, no.
We have two Watch channels, one for Taste of Home and one for Family Handyman. So one food focused, one home improvement DIY focused, yeah, they've done surprisingly well for us. They've sort of surpassed, we had very low expectations. So to say that it surpassed our expectations isn't saying much, actually. But we've had very, very good user engagement. We were a very, very early partner with Facebook on launching Watch, and so they were actually very helpful. Well, not very helpful. They were somewhat helpful in driving additional traffic to those pages because they were trying to promote that effort at the time. What we found is it's actually, there were a couple of things for us, is it has pulled in new users, different users than might otherwise have come to our standard Facebook pages. And additional monetization opportunity, and it's also allowed. We don't have huge video efforts, but it's allowed us to sort of experiment with some ROI upfront that is important to us. If anyone knows our financial history, it's a very important part of sort of our short-term strategy.
So the short answer is we are on Facebook Watch. Actually, this is not a short answer, I lied. We are on Facebook Watch. We actually were planning to get on it for a while, and we just got delayed. And in all fairness, I mean, it's been great for us. Like it's very recent. I'm talking a couple of months, and so far the data's been great. Folks are watching it. Folks are sharing it. We're seeing some sort of pull from folks that are either on the fringes, as in not necessarily part of our follower base. So it's interesting from an audience depth perspective. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think we have the same question as we've always had with video on Facebook, which is, apart from, unless it's branded content, the only monetization opportunities, I mean, they're limited, or they're still in sort of, this long-term beta. So it's too early to tell if it's like, if it's necessarily a gold mine, or if it's just yet one more channel to build an audience. And the other thing is also, I'm very curious to see, and again, it's just overall it's too early to tell. I'm really curious to see what the retention looks like. Because one of the great things about YouTube is, folks, including myself, will often subscribe to fairly obscure channels, but then we will tune in every week to see an episode. And I just want to know if that is actually going to happen. So it's a little early to tell, but we're bolstered by what we're seeing.
Well, it's the best way to end a Facebook panel is on if their latest tease to publishers is actually going to pan out or not. Panel, thank you very much. Greg is going to be leading the roundtable on this at the end of the morning.